With all due respect, that's a bunch of malarkey. This is a bunch of stuff, deal.
What does that mean, a bunch of stuff?
Well, it means it's simply inaccurate.
It's Irish.
Exactly, it is. We Irish call it malarkey.
Thanks for the translation.
No, we Irish call it malarkey.
You know what this is? Yeah, and I reserve this word for those rare instances when it's truly deserved. This is malarkey.
That's a bunch of malarkey.
Direct from the King Spring Studios in beautiful Smyrna, Georgia. This is a bunch of malarkey. Now, here's your host, the incredible Charlie McMahon.
Thank you, Scott Shannon, for that introduction, and thank all of you for tuning in to yet another episode of A Bunch of Malarkey. Thank you to the 7,700-plus listeners that tuned in last week for that amazing interview that Claire gave, and a big thank you to Claire, once again, for all the hard work she put in to making that episode such a fun one, because believe me, I know how much work it goes into each episode, and I had the luxury of having little work to do last week, thanks to Claire. So, Claire, thank you, and thanks to everyone for tuning in. So we're coming off Father's Day weekend. I guess we'll call this our mid-June edition of the show. And I do have a co-pilot, kind of a co-captain here today, and his name is Philip. Philip, welcome to the show.
Charlie, thanks for having me on. I've enjoyed the show for a while and loved your book, so I'm glad to be in here with you.
Well, now you're definitely welcome here. Now that you read the book and you listened to the show, well, we love people like that. And Philip, I want to make sure I call you Philip and not Phil. Your family's no stranger to the show. Your sister's been on a couple of times.
That's right. My sister is actually the one that sort of introduced us by way of your book. She gave it to me as a gift. I ended up laughing a long time at it, loved it, and reached out, and we've sort of chatted back and forth now for a while. So, Amanda, thank you for the book, and thank you for introducing me to Charlie.
Right, and today's theme, which we'll get to, our main topic, was actually inspired by one of Philip's Facebook posts earlier in the week. So we're going to get to that. It's going to be a fun episode. But I always like to start off the show recapping some silly things that happened here at the house or in the neighborhood or around town over the past week. Now, Philip, you live about 8 miles north of me, right?
Yeah, I'm up in North Cobb around Kennesaw area.
All right, so you weren't affected by this crazy boil water alert back on Tuesday morning, were you?
No, thank goodness not. I certainly know, my sister and your friend was worried about it since she's down the street from you, but I was lucky. I've had drinkable water all week.
Now, everybody knows who listens to the show how neurotic I am with public pools and germs and stuff. Now, it's fine. Things happen. There was a water main break Tuesday morning at 4:30. These things happen. Infrastructure's old. It's dilapidated. That's a whole other political issue for another show. But the water main broke, and they fixed it within a couple hours. And then around 8. Now, if you're a social media person, a young guy in social media, you're going to be up to date on some of this stuff, Philip. But I feel bad for the older people who aren't really social media savvy, because around, I guess it was about 8:30, 4 hours after the water main, the city here puts up a post that there could be a boil water advisory coming our way. Now, could be. That leaves everybody in limbo. People have already made coffee. Restaurants already opened. There's all kinds of people using this water. And it took them till 10:30 in the morning. Now, I'm reading this as I'm drinking a cup of coffee in my kitchen. I'm like throwing it out, and I forgot that my wife put the water in the coffee pot the night before, so the water was actually fine, but I'm fucking crazy. But anyway, wasn't until almost 11 o'clock where they actually said, yeah, you have to boil water now. Now, I'm thinking, how many restaurants stayed open? Did they prepare food? I mean, to me, they botched the whole thing. Wouldn't you have wanted to know? Like, what if you're not on social media, Philip? Like, how do you find this shit out nowadays?
The good thing about Atlanta is at least Channel 2 News or WSB News does do constant reporting.
Right.
So at least if you're, a baby boomer or part of the greatest generation, you will probably at least get the information through Channel 2 News. But, I'm the same as you. I looked on social media, I took a break at work, looked at my phone, and, saw that there was a boil water advisory. Immediately looked and saw I was out of it and went about my day.
Right. Well, at least it only lasted about 24 hours and we're back to normal. But let me tell you something. I was like paranoid. I'm like, is there water still in the line? Like I shut the refrigerator ice maker off. I knew that much where it would still be producing ice and did some other things. But like the day they lifted the ban, I'm still running all the faucets for like an hour. I don't even want to see the water bill because I'm paranoid. So that's just me, folks. You know how crazy I am. So why don't we transition before we get into our main topic of the day to everyone's favorite part of the show?
Mutant of the Week.
Now, we had a pretty decisive victory last week. I thought it was going to be closer than it was, but it was still pretty close. The Amazon slave driver, the gentleman who forced the Amazon Prime driver at gunpoint to rake his driveway, beat the concealed karaoke kook, the woman who pulled the gun, because she thought she should be next to karaoke. It was a 60 to 40% margin. Once again, Amazon slave driver is our winner, beating the concealed karaoke kook, 60 to 40. If you're new to the show, don't know where to vote, the poll goes up every Tuesday morning, very bright and early, and goes till midday on Saturday. So you have 5 full days to vote. Make your voice heard. And let's present this week's nominees. Philip's going to read our first nominee.
And Charlie, I'm excited about this. You know, you and I joke back and forth about this certain state, and I'm excited that this is the mutant I get. But ladies and gentlemen, Naples, Florida.
Oh, boy.
A Southwest Florida man is behind bars after deputies said he stripped off his clothes and danced at a Collier County McDonald's. John F. Morgan, 63, was arrested on a trespassing charge Sunday evening after a witness saw him undressing and performing a strange dance near the front door of the Naples restaurant. The Collier County Sheriff's Office said that the witness added that Morgan was possibly on drugs.
You think?
As a deputy headed to the McDonald's, the caller said the man pulled his pants down, but put them back on, and was I'm sorry. He was trying to have relations with a railing, the report said. The deputy arrived and immediately recognized Morgan, who had been banned from the McDonald's after a March 15 incident, according to the report.
So he's a regular.
He is a regular at this McDonald's. I'd kind of like to know what happened on March 15th.
Yeah,
now.
exactly.
The deputy said he had spoken to Morgan late Saturday and told him to avoid the restaurant. Morgan was jailed on a $2,000 bond. Let's call him Morgan McBearass.
Morgan McBear. All right, so that's our first nominee out of the great state. Should we say the great state? The bizarre state? What's in the water? We just spoke about water. What's in the water?
I would love to know what's in the water down there. I love Florida. It's a great place. I spent a lot of time working there for many years. It is such a bizarre place.
Yeah, they're always in the news. All right, so our first one is the Morgan McBearass, and our second mutant nominee comes out of South Carolina, where a woman was arrested on charges of being drunk while driving down a South Carolina road last Monday. But it's what she was driving that caught the attention of the Walhalla police. Responding to a call about a suspicious female, officers found Megan Danielle Holman behind a silver Power Wheels toy truck. Police said in an incident report. Police confirmed she was impaired behind the wheel of this Power Wheels toy truck. The 25-year-old Walhalla woman said she was driving the motorized toy truck down Playground Road about a mile from her home, according to the incident report. Holman appeared to be under the influence of a narcotic drug, police said in the incident report. She told police she was riding the toy truck as part of a scavenger hunt and said she wanted to be a professional wrestler like her father is, and this is how she was planning on accomplishing that, according to the incident report. Information on her father was unavailable. Happy Father's Day. Holman was arrested and taken to the Oconee County Detention Center, where she was charged with public intoxication, police said in the report. She was later released on a personal recognizance bond. So let's call her the Power Wheels Wackadoodle.
I'm curious about this one now, especially to find out who her father is.
Right.
Being a fan of professional wrestling.
Yeah, is it like Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair? Who is it?
I would be very curious. And that story actually makes me laugh because it makes me think of another one from several years ago where there was a young lady at the University of Texas who had too many DUIs, And to get around school, she drove a pink
I
Barbie
think I remember
Power
reading
Wheels
that.
car.
Well, I didn't know that you could get a whole mile away from home on that battery.
That's impressive.
How far do those batteries take you?
They must be using the new hybrid technology.
Exactly. So there you have it, folks. Those are your 2 nominees. Please go to our Facebook page, A Bunch of Malarkey, and make your voices heard. Again, the poll goes up on Tuesday and ends on Saturday afternoon. Now, about, I think, mid-March, Philip, I did a show here on A Bunch of Malarkey called Real World Readiness. I spoke about things we wasted time on in school that did not ready us for the real world, whether it be academically, financially, or even emotionally. You know, our parents taught us some things, perhaps a grandparent, an aunt, or an uncle, or perhaps an older mentor figure. John Lennon once said that when he was 5 years old, his mother told him that happiness was the key to his life. So when he was in school years later, his mother had passed away when he was young, he was asked what he wanted to be when he grew up. And he told the teacher he wanted to be happy. And the teacher told him that he did not understand the assignment. And John Lennon told the teacher she didn't understand life. So school did not delve into the struggles we would have with love, finances, careers, or simply finding happiness. Bruce Springsteen once wrote in his song No Surrender off the Born in the USA album that we busted out of class, we had to get away from those fools, we learned more from a 3-minute record, baby, than we ever learned in school. Now, if we would have paid attention or closer attention when we were younger, those life lessons were all around us by simply turning on the radio. You know, I remember being a kid, Philip, on my swing set. We didn't listen to, and I thank my parents for this, we weren't listening to Wheels on the Bus Go Round and Round. I'm on my swing set singing Dust in the Wind. You talk about a philosophical song.
You know, I kind of feel the same way. You know, growing up in Atlanta in the late 70s, 80s, we were blessed with a great, I hate to call it this now, but an oldie station.
Right.
Fox 97. And, you know, my parents, we listened to it all the time. And I was exposed to great music. You know, my father had a wonderful collection of albums,
Sure.
8 tracks that he would play all the time, even cassettes.
Right.
You know, one of my favorite things, and where I, you know, got a lot of my life lessons, like you were saying, is through music. When I was learning to drive, he and I had a route we would ride, and that's when cassettes were popular in your cars, and he would bring his cassettes. I would drive, and he would listen to the music. So I got exposed to so much great, you know, now that, I mean, I would call it rock, but now it would be classified as classic rock through those Sunday drives with him.
And we didn't realize at the time, like, I think the point of this episode, and it's based on your Facebook post earlier in the week, we were singing along to these songs when we were young, enjoying the music, bonding with whoever we were listening to them with, but we didn't realize the meaning behind the songs, and they took on a much different meaning as we've gotten older and gotten a different perspective on life. So basically, what we want to do today is Philip and I want to talk about 5 songs each that we listened to as young men and have taken on a different meaning now that we're in our 40s. That songs that we can look back on and, you know, that were teaching us a life lesson at the time. So I'm going to let Philip kick it off with his first selection.
Well, you know, Charlie, what kicked this off, I took my daughter on vacation the first week of June, and we were in Orlando, and we stopped in at Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville to eat dinner.
Right.
And they were playing Pirate Looks at 40 when we were in there, and it hit me. I love that song as a young man. You know, I thought it was, you know, cool. He talks about being a pirate and, you know, wanting to plunder cities, and, you know, he made all this money, and as a younger man, it was like, yeah, this is a, you know, kind of cool song. And I'm sitting there listening to it, and it was the one line where he's talking about the cannons don't thunder, there's nothing to plunder. I'm over 40, victim of fate. And that one just hit me like a bus.
Yes.
You know, it completely changed how I heard the song then. And, you know, it makes you realize, you know, it changed for me at that moment from a song that was, you know, about, you know, being a pirate and, you know, wanted to do cool pirate stuff to a song about longing and regret and, you know, the things that you may never get to do in life. And, You know, I always enjoyed Buffett, you know, as a
Right.
kid. He's a great, you know, he's great for parties. He puts on an amazing concert.
Great concert, yes.
Just amazing concerts. But right then it hit me what a great singer-songwriter he is. To write such a relatable line, and one that, you know...
What makes you really relate to that line at this point in your life?
You know, it's like I was saying, it's, you know, the things that you may not get to do now.
Right.
You know, you and I are both at a point where, you know, we're sort of at the halfway point. And
I think I'm on the backside.
You know, we're at the halfway point, and it makes you think, you know, should I, you know, what am I not going to get to do now?
Right.
And it's, you know, that part, you know, just really hit me, you know, kind of hard. It even made me look at some of his other songs. You know, you look at He Went to Paris, which,
Sure.
you know, speaking of Father's Day, you know, is an ode to his father. And I kind of had to chuckle at the line that he has in there about French wines and cheeses. Yeah, you know, it put his ambitions at bay. And, you know, putting both songs together, you start realizing, you know, the things you missed out, and then the things you, I guess, succumb to, you know, make you miss out on those things.
Right.
But I think Jimmy Buffett is a very much, while he's looked at it being a great party, you know, star, I think he is
definitely meaningful. Even Come Monday is a meaningful song.
Amazing
song.
song.
I wanted that at my wedding. We got married on Labor Day weekend, and I said, I have to play that at the cocktail hour. I made sure that was on part of the playlist.
You know what? That is an excellent wedding choice.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So I saw everybody responding on your Facebook post, and it got me thinking. And my first pick is a song that really introduced me to my favorite artist, Bruce Springsteen. It was late 1980. It was around the time John Lennon was killed. And this song was all over the radio. It was called Hungry Heart. Now, I remember playing this when it got cold up north in the wintertime. Recess was brought into the gym, and we were allowed to bring the school provided a record player, and we were allowed to bring in our records and play them in the gym, almost like a dance party every day at recess. And I was the DJ, and I think that's what made me want to get into DJing later in life, because everybody would come up to you. You were like the mob boss. You controlled everything. Girls would come up to you. I was a fourth grader. Girls were coming up to me asking for songs, and I would play Hungry Heart all the time because I just liked the tempo, the melody. I really wasn't thinking about the words behind the song. But as I've gotten older, Hungry Heart's taken on a new meaning for me.
Same here. Springsteen is amazing, and I know our parents' generation. You know, Elvis is king to them, but
right.
There's something about Bruce. He owns the title of being the boss. Not only an amazing rock star, but just an amazing singer-songwriter.
The writing is amazing. Now, I always thought the song was about just wanting to be loved. There's a hint of irony about how he says he does love, like he's married, he's got a wife and kids in Baltimore, Jack. He went out for that ride, he never went back. Like a river that didn't know where it was flowing, he took a wrong turn and he just kept going. He met his wife at a Kingstown bar. He fell in love, but he knew it had to end. He took what he had, or they took what they had and ripped it apart. Now he's back there in Kingstown again. So, you know, to me, did his life come full circle? Is he going to make the same mistake again? Is he out looking for the same thing that he already has? Is there something bad in that marriage he's looking for to feel fulfillment someplace else? I mean, there's a lot of questions that are open to interpretation in the song, but it's a lot deeper than just singing along to Hungry Heart when you're a 9-year-old.
And what's funny about it, it's so sing-songy.
Yes,
you know,
it is.
It is.
Yes.
It's an easy song to sing to.
It almost has like a 50s feel to it, doesn't it?
It
like
does.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think the song, for me, it's saying that everyone, even people in a seemingly perfect life, have a reason to restart. It's about wanting to be loved and not wanting to be somewhere that's no longer the case. Maybe in a marriage that isn't working anymore. His marriage in the song, I think, is finished. He admits that they both ripped it apart, and now he's back in Kingstown where it all started, where he found love, and he's hoping to find it again. So that's pretty deep for me.
It is, and it wasn't until I was older, too. I mean, you and I have chatted about both being Springsteen fans.
Right.
And it wasn't until I was older that I truly understood the longing that he has in the song.
Yeah.
The heartbreak. I mean, it is sing-songy, but it's such a heartbreaking song.
It is.
Actually, listen to what Bruce is saying.
So if you want a real-life playlist, folks, start jotting these songs down. Philip went with Pirate Looks at 40 by Jimmy Buffett and add Hungry Heart by Springsteen. And now Philip's going to read another pick of his that kind of means a different thing to him now than it did years ago.
I don't necessarily say this one means something different to me, but I definitely understand it more.
Okay.
And it's Jackson Browne's Running on Empty.
Oh, absolutely.
That song, I used to use it as a workout song.
Especially when I was on my running playlist.
It was on my running and walking playlist. And now I'll play it on my commute, and I just hear it so differently. It's... once again, another great songwriter.
He's looking out at the road under his feet where he's been.
Yep.
Right?
And
where he's going.
And it's, this one gets to me now. This one, pulls at my heartstrings because it's,
I think people associate it with running because of Forrest Gump.
I think so too. And, the thing with me with this one is, it's that line he says in the song, where he mentions his friends and he sees that they're out there.
Yes.
See, I'm getting choked up even thinking about it.
It's good. This is what it's all about.
That line where he's talking about, where he talks about his friends and he sees them running too.
Yeah.
It's that, if you
they're all in the same boat.
We're all in the same boat. And it's just, there's something so empathetic about that song. It's not just a good running workout song. It's a song about, we're all in this boat together.
And you talk about a prolific songwriter. I mean, Glenn Frey talks about when he rented an apartment below Jackson Browne when he was just coming up with the Eagles. And he said how he would screw around. He didn't know how to write songs. Glenn Frey didn't know how to write songs yet. And he said he would hear Jackson Browne up early in the morning on that piano, just belting out, testing out things, and then the tea kettle would go off. Jackson Browne would take a break, have his tea, go back to the piano, and he said, that's how I figured out how to write songs, by listening to Jackson Browne upstairs in that apartment.
How cool would it be to be in an apartment complex with Glenn Frey and Jackson Browne and hearing Jackson Browne?
And maybe Daryl Hannah stopping by back in the day.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Well, they dated. Were they married or they dated?
I think they were dating.
Yeah. Yeah, so Jackson Browne, one of his songs I'm going to be talking about again later, and because I picked one of his songs. My second pick is the title track to Billy Joel's first really huge commercial success album called The Stranger. Now, for me, The Stranger, the actual song The Stranger, I think it's something we all still do. It refers to ourselves not being true to ourselves, but rather our artificial self, the faces we create to please others and adapt to social situations. It's having a different side of you that you are when nobody else is around, when nobody's watching you, the side of yourself you don't share with anyone, even maybe your husband or wife. The Stranger is representing who you really are, and it's familiar to you, but it's strange to everybody else. Like he'll say in the song, well, we all have a face that we hide away forever, and we take them out and show ourselves when everyone has gone. Some are satin, some are steel, some are silk, and some are leather. They're the faces of the stranger, but we love to try them on. And then the song goes on to say, what do you call it? That there's actually the person he's with has their mask on, and he doesn't recognize the lover that he's with because she has her mask or her stranger mask on. So everybody's hiding a part of themselves that they don't want even the closest people in their lives to see. And I think that's something we can all relate to.
I can, and I've got to admit, this is one Billy Joel song I've never listened to. And as a teen, I played piano, and I played a lot of Billy Joel songs. I love New York State of Mind. This is one I've never listened to, so I'm glad you picked it, because this is not one I'm familiar with, and I'm going to have to listen to it later.
Well, I think the big part of the song is he says, we all fall in love, but we disregard the danger. We share so many secrets, but there are some we never tell. Why were you so surprised that you never saw the stranger? Did you ever let your lover see the stranger in yourself? It's just, the whole album back to front is great. But I always sang along to this song as a kid because my mother played the Stranger album front to back all the time. And this was the opening track to the album and the whole whistling intro. And I used to just whistle along and sing. And I never realized how deep this song really was till I got a little bit older, maybe in my early 20s years.
I'll make a commitment. I'll have to listen to this one now because it's not one I'm familiar with.
Yeah, I think you'd enjoy it.
Billy Joel too. I think is sort of the rock stars from that era is underrated.
Yes.
He being a piano man, he's not going to be the sort of front man that Springsteen is.
Right.
But he does. He's got such great songs.
And he went for a while there in like the late 90s, early 2000s. He had some problems with alcohol, and his voice really went downhill, and his performances weren't that good. Because I saw him when I was younger. Then I saw him in like 99, and he wasn't that good. And then we saw him a couple of years ago. It was the first ever event at SunTrust Park. And amazing again.
I'm jealous. That was one concert I wanted to go to, but I could not make it to. That looked like an amazing night.
It was a great show. So what do we have next?
I'm going to go with one that's everyone's favorite. I mean, come on, everyone loves Petty.
Of course.
I mean, Petty's one of the great, equalizers, I think, between...
And a great live performer he was.
He was. My sister and I took our father. Our father's a big Petty fan, and we took him to the one of his last concerts.
Right. I remember seeing that, yeah.
Through Atlanta. But I'm picking Free Fallin'. Great song to sing to. But, as a younger man, I like the song for, just it being a song about, life and being free. And then now I hear it completely differently. It still says the same things, but I just listen to it, I guess now with some experience and I guess an appreciation for the freedom he's singing about.
Is there any part of the song that really hits home? Any line or any part of the song that really puts it over the top for you?
It's that last sort of bit of the song where I want to glide down Mount Holland.
Right.
I want to write her name in the sky. I want to free fall out of nothing, and I'm going to leave this world for a while.
Deep.
It is. And, I think as we get older, I think there's that urge for us to, I guess, get away. We both live in a very large city. And you came from New York, which is even bigger. But, there's that desire to get out of this area for a while. And,
right.
There's a lot to be said about the freedom he's singing about in the song.
Well, Bruce Springsteen always says when he wrote Born to Run, he's always talking about running somewhere in his songs. And he said, well, what do you do when you get there? Because, I think what a lot of people think is, starting over somewhere and just moving, it's going to change their lives. But if you bring a lot of that emotional, I don't want to call it baggage because everybody has their own story, but if you bring that with you, no matter where you go, you're not going to be happy. And I think Springsteen in his later stuff kind of says, all right, we went to a place where we really wanted to go, but until we did this, we were back in the same old situation.
That's a perfect way to describe Springsteen's older stuff. I think you listen to him, and his early songs are definitely about longing and wanting to run. And now, especially with his newer songs, you can really see exactly what you were saying. He's coming to that
more introspective.
He's introspective. He's got experience, and it's that. Yeah, I ran away, but just like you said, until I was able to do these things, I wasn't able to become happy.
Right.
You mentioned Born to Run, and I had thought about putting Born to Run on my list, and I didn't. But what a great song. As a kid, I would listen to that song, and you would air guitar it, and it's so powerful.
Right.
And now you listen to it, and you're just like, wow.
Yeah.
This guy knows,
it's a powerful
he gets
song.
Me.
My next song is kind of heartbreaking for me. I was 9 years old when John Lennon was killed, And I remember the morning waking up, and it was all over the news, and it was all that was talked about for a week. I remember when all the radio stations in New York played Imagine at the same time, a couple of days after he passed. I remember seeing on the news the swells of people outside of his apartment building when he was killed, and I didn't realize the significance of John Lennon as a 9-year-old. And he... when he was killed, he had just finished an album called Double Fantasy with his wife Yoko, where it was an album about starting over. The title, the first track on the album was called Starting Over. It's about his finally being happy in his life. He was finally happy with what he was doing after his Beatles days. Now he was raising a young boy with his wife, the woman he loved very much. And there was a song on that album that was released in 1981 after he had passed away called Watching the Wheels. And this whole song is about John, the 5 years he was out of the music business from 1975 to 1980 when he recorded that Double Fantasy album. And people said he was crazy. The opening line is saying, people say I'm crazy doing what I'm doing, which was staying at home raising a child. They give him all kinds of advice and warnings to save him from ruin. He tells them that he's okay, but they look at him kind of strange. Surely you're not happy anymore. You no longer play the game being the music industry. People were saying he's dreaming his life away. They gave him all kinds of advice designed to enlighten him. But he told them that he was doing fine watching shadows on the wall. And they'd ask him, don't you miss the big time, boy? You're no longer on the ball. But he's just sitting there watching the wheels go round and round. He really loves to watch them roll. He's no longer riding on that merry-go-round, the craziness of that music industry and stardom. He just had to let it go. So he was finally happy in his life and came to terms with everything and was raising his son and just saying, fuck you to everybody. I'm doing what I want to do. And then that lunatic killed him. And this song is just heartbreaking to me. It's just a basic... it describes me and what I want. I really don't, money. How much money can you have? Or a big corporate job or any of that. You don't need to become rich. I just see people struggling. You see people competing with the Joneses, fighting so hard for things that they think they need, they don't really know, when all they really need is just to be happy. And that's what he's talking about in this song.
Charlie, I'll tell you to do this and see if you listen to it a different way, but compare it to the other songs in that album, and it's the one song that I think you can truly hear that Lennon is happy when he sings that song. Compared to everything else he's ever sung, his voice sounds just a little different in that song, and you can tell that he's happy. And that was one thing I loved, that when you and I talked about this song originally, is we both saw it the same way. It was the ultimate middle finger to all the people that said, why did you quit? One thing I think is admirable about John Lennon is he did do what he wanted to do. He did. He lived life his way. And, amazing artist. I think you're right. It's just sad that his life was taken the way that it was.
Right. And the other track, Starting Over, talking about basically starting, he's like, it was a reboot of his life with Yoko. He found a woman that he was, they were together for a while at that point, but they had Sean. They were starting over. Then the song Woman, dedicated to Yoko Ono, another amazing song. The Double Fantasy album in a whole, there's a couple of Yoko Ono singing songs on there that are like nails on a chalkboard to me that I kind of skip, but the rest of the album, folks, is amazing. Add Watching the Wheels to your playlist.
I bought into the whole rock culture society thing of hating Yoko for years, but as I've gotten older, I see her sort of as a sympathetic character now.
Yeah, I don't dislike her as a person, but she can't sing.
No, definitely not a singer.
And I know I'm going to probably be criticized for it, but I'm not a big fan of Bruce Springsteen's wife's voice, Patti Scalfa. She yodels and shit too much. I'm not a big fan of her singing either.
Nor am I. But definitely would agree, Yoko is probably the worst.
Yeah. So what's your next pick for the, we'll call it Lyrical Lessons playlist?
Well, what's nice about this is I'm piggybacking off of yours and actually going back in time for Lennon and doing some Lennon, McCartney, and some Beatles.
Oh, great.
In my life.
Perfect.
This song I heard as a child on Fox 97 and loved it. As a teenager, I played it on piano at my piano lessons. As a young man in my 20s, getting married, I loved the song. But, man, this song just kills me.
Sure.
I usually I'm even looking at the lyrics and getting choked up at this one, but
Very reflective.
it is unbelievably reflective. It is unbelievably affectionate. It's nostalgic. It's hopeful. It is, it's an amazing song, and you can put it towards someone specific. You can put it to a group of friends.
Sure.
I've seen it used at many graduations
Absolutely.
as well. But, this is probably the perfect song to use for anything nostalgia-wise.
You could even use it at a wake or a funeral.
Yes. Perfect song for that, which would probably bring most people to tears.
Sure.
This is one of two Beatles songs that I both sang to both of my children when they were babies. This and Here Comes the Sun were the two
Sure.
that I would rock them to sleep with.
Do they have appreciation of older music now?
They do. One of the things that I find funny, especially when we get in the car, is instead of just a normal radio station, they asked to listen to my music instead of their mother's music. So
I don't blame them.
my son's actually now on Spotify, and he uses a lot of my playlists.
I was going to say, you better be listening to Dad's playlist.
He does. So they both have an appreciation for the Beatles.
That's great.
We've gone, here in Atlanta, we've got a lot of great tribute bands, and occasionally there's Yacht Rock Review.
Yep.
And they have a restaurant. They occasionally do a Beatles night, and when they do it, I will take.
Is that
them
like
to
Venkman's or one of
It
those
is,
places?
it's
Yeah,
Venkman's.
yeah.
And they do a acoustic Beatles night that I've taken them to several times, and they really enjoy it. But this song,
And they're going to thank you for that when they're a lot older and can, like we're talking about it now, when they can reflect on what these songs really mean. I think they're going to be very grateful for you introducing them to this music.
well, this one and Here Comes the Sun. What I find funny is, and now they've gotten a little older, they're paused and they'll pause and they're like, "Why do I know this song?"
Sure.
And I'm just like, "Yeah, I subliminally implanted this one into you at a very early age."
And I always said, there's a lot of things I disagree with some of the parenting choices that my parents made, but the one thing I have to say my mother did right was exposing us to great music, never censoring music if it was too. I know a lot of parents censor music. My mother, music was an open book, never censored and said, this is too grown up for you kids. Anything she listened to, we listened to, and it was good quality music that I grew up on. That really shapes you as a person listening to the music as a youngster. And like I said, the only kids' music we really listen to is if we watch Sesame Street or Mr. Rogers. But we weren't listening. Like now they have this Baby Shark song and all this other stuff. We never listened to kids' songs. We listened to whatever. I'm telling you, I was singing Dust in the Wind at 6 years old. I didn't know what the hell it meant. All I was dust in the wind.
One thing I'm sad about, and I think it's great through video games, but, I mentioned earlier Fox 97. Mm-hmm. And in the 80s, I remember hearing all these great 50s songs. Not only doo-wop, but like rockabilly.
Oh, sure.
And, it's vanished from our airwaves.
It really has.
But one thing I think is cool, my son was playing around with my Spotify account, and he pulls up an old Del Shannon song.
Runaway.
Playing Runaway.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how do you know this? And he goes, oh, it's in my video game. He's like, it's in
Yes,
Fallout.
a lot of the video games bringing back these songs.
And they're bringing back these songs. So
Yep.
they're, we've got a generation that's now, 70 years removed from 60, 70 years
true.
removed from these songs that are now rediscovering them through pop culture.
No, I think that's great.
But yeah, in my life, I think every 5-10 years, I hear the song and it just means something different. Now, we mentioned earlier, we're at the age now that, we're probably both starting to lose people.
Oh, sure, and it's scary.
And it's scary, and this song will occasionally come on, and it's just, it hits you hard.
Yeah. And I think of the hundreds of weddings I DJ'd when I had the DJ business, I don't think there was one wedding where it wasn't either asked for as their wedding song or that I didn't play it during a cocktail hour. I think every single wedding, that song, any wedding I ever did, that song was played. That was one of the few songs that I can guarantee that was played at every wedding I ever DJ'd.
Really?
In one, some people used it to walk down the aisle. Some people actually requested it for cocktail hour, but I always incorporated it in some way, shape, or form in every wedding I did. Because it's just the timeless, and like you said, it fits perfectly into an event like that.
It really does. I mean, it's beautiful too, and it's such a great song to play on piano.
Yeah. We had an acoustic guitar player for our wedding that played Beatles songs as we came down the aisle and our family came down the aisle. And I'm pretty sure that was the song that we came down the aisle to on strings.
Excellent choice.
Yeah. So it means a lot to me, too. Now, the next song, you talk about a song that's etched in your mind from your parents playing it, my mother especially. I can remember this full blast where the speakers almost blew in the Dodge Dart that we drove in, and out of the house. I always talked about my mom's music for the whole neighborhood. And I always remember this song for the amazing saxophone solo in the middle. But I never realized what they were talking about, and that's Baker Street by Jerry Rafferty.
That's a great pick.
I mean, you talk about a song that's deep, that talks about life, and you don't really, again, you're listening, that saxophone is just killer. If I had to pick, maybe next to Jungle Land by Springsteen, a saxophone solo in the middle of a song that just blows you away is Jerry Rafferty's Baker Street.
It really is. I mean, you'll appreciate this. I'd have to find the video, but at my son's middle school band concert, apparently they had a young man in the 6th grade band that wanted to do a little bit more on the saxophone and move up. And their band, he wanted to play Careless Whisper, and the band director said, absolutely not. He goes, if you learn this, I'll let you solo it at the concert. And the kid learned
No way.
the Baker Street
Amazing
sax solo. And what was funny, I joked that I'm one of the older parents at their school, and I am. But the minute the kid got done, I jumped up. I'm like, yeah, Baker Street.
Well, I can remember, like I said, we bring those records to school, and I remember me and this kid Gary wanted to play Baker Street, and the rest of the class was fighting with us because they wanted to hear the Grease soundtrack for the 100th time. And we said, no, we're playing Baker Street. And the teacher had to come and intervene and say, all right, we heard Grease enough. Let him play this 45. And we got to play. I mean, we were forcing Baker Street on second graders. But the song, to me, we've all known people in our lives, and maybe it was even us, where we kept saying, we'll do this next year. We had dreams about buying some land. We're going to give up the booze and the one-night stand next year. Then we'll settle down. And you look at this person and you say, come on, man. You want to shake them and say, when are you going to wake up? Or maybe it's yourself. Maybe you look at yourself in the mirror and say, when the hell are you going to wake up and get off this path that you're on? Maybe it's out of depression that this person was doing these things. You know, he's just dreaming his life away, drinking his life away, and always making these plans that he never followed through on. And I guess that's all of us in some way, at some point in our life.
It really is. And, this song, I think you'll appreciate the story. I had a life event happen about 3 years ago, and one of my closest friends, we've been friends since 6th grade. His birthday is right after mine. But we'd got together, and, I was sort of reflecting on things that were happening to him, and he said, he's like, listen to the song Baker Street and what it's really saying. He's like, you need to take this time now to do the things you really want to do.
Right.
And he's like, what's something that's on your bucket list? And so I gave him a bucket list item, and he sort of forced me to do it. And, I have a great appreciation for him because he not only reintroduced the song back to me, but made me look at it sort of in the same way that you're looking at it now.
What is the biggest meaningful part of the song, or what really stands out in the song that hits home for you?
Besides the sax solo?
Yeah, besides the sax solo.
Because if I hear that, I'm cheering it no matter where I'm at. No, is
it the putting off that he talks about, or that better times are coming, or is he?
That's the great thing about the song, because it remains hopeful, and that's what I like about it.
Right.
That's the point that my friend was trying to make was, you can have these things happen, or you can put these things off, but you can remain hopeful, and maybe do some of the things you want to do.
Right, and that's the closing part of the song. It says, and when you wake up, it's a new morning. The sun is shining. It's a new morning, and you're going home.
Yep. Which I did not understand that when I was younger.
Right.
But now, I'll mention his name. God bless Stephen for that conversation we had. We we met. We went out to a bar in Atlanta. We hit the Wilco concert and had a wild night in Atlanta, and that was one of our discussion topics. And not even a week later, I told him one of my bucket list items, and he had me at an event for it, and
that's awesome.
I was doing it. So
Baker Street was the inspiration.
Baker Street was our inspiration.
All right. So what is your next pick?
My final fifth one is Fleetwood Mac's Landslide.
Oh, amazing song.
I heard it on my dad's records and through the radio, and just thought, oh, what a really nice, love song.
Right.
And then The Dance came out in 97.
Yes, great album.
And, I watched her and Lindsay on stage and saw it in a completely different way.
Absolutely.
And then, you have certain things happen in life that may be even similar to this. And, it gets you. I was lucky to go see Fleetwood Mac's retirement concert here in Atlanta when they came through in March. And seeing Stevie do that with basically herself without Lindsay was extremely moving. But this song means so much. It's a song about change. It's a song about love. What an amazing, Stevie Nicks totally deserves to be the first two-time female in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But, hearing this song as a child, you think it's just a very pretty song.
I think it's a birthday today, or it was. I thought I saw it somewhere on Facebook. I think 71 today or yesterday.
71, yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, you hear it as a child and you think, what a pretty love song.
It's a beautiful song.
And if you're
a lot of people want that. A lot of father-daughter dances were to that song at weddings.
Really?
Yeah, I've seen a few of those over the years.
Interesting choice.
Yeah.
Very interesting choice. It's kind of like that is an interesting choice for
yeah. I've seen.
But I can see it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great. Like you said, when it came out originally, you sang along with it like any of the other Fleet. But with that album, The Dance in '97, that's when it really. You took a step back and you said, whoa.
What's interesting about it, and I've read about Landslide, is it really didn't get popular, though, until Smashing Pumpkins covered it.
Is that right?
Yeah. The Dance and the Smashing Pumpkins cover is what actually moved Landslide to being sort of a pop culture love song
I didn't know
phenomenon.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah, I learned something new today, thanks to Phil. My last pick for songs I heard differently is a Jackson Browne song called, and it's a title track to one of his albums called The Pretender. It's the actual song called The Pretender. I mean, this is, you talk about a story, an American, this is a story about a guy, or it could be a girl, something we all go through. It's about, how do I even begin? It's a guy who's caught between longing for love, and it's basically a song about, does he give up on everything, all his dreams, and just join the crowd, fall in love, rent a house, slave away at a job, spend his life in pursuit of money, or does he fall in love? It's like a struggle between his dreams or going the different path, the worn path that everybody does, falling in love, having the house, so this is a struggle he's talking about in this song.
One of my favorite lines in this song, this is an amazing song, by the way. I've always loved the line, I'm going to be a happy idiot and struggle for the legal tender.
Yeah, it's a great, yep.
That one, especially, if you're in our age group and now you've been working 20 plus years, that one just smacks you right in the face.
Yeah. No, it's funny that we spend every day wanting something more, and the more we want, the more we believe in our pursuit of happiness, in a way, and the more we turn ourselves into people that are only half aware. I think in a lot of ways, and I think this song is just paints a picture of what we all go through. I don't know. You think it's an American thing based on our culture? This struggle, this always wanting more. This,
I really do. Before. In 97, in 2017, I had the pleasure of going to our neighboring country to the south, Cuba, while the border was still open.
Oh, wow. That's great.
And I'm at least conversational in Spanish. So I was actually able to have real conversations with a lot of the Cubans. And this just wasn't, they didn't have the same, I guess, longing or desires that we have. I think it's very much an American problem or an American situation. But, I was talking to them, and I'm like, well, what do you do? And they're like, oh, it's wonderful. After work, we get together with friends, and we take a guitar, and we sing and dance in the streets. And at first I didn't believe them, but we got off the boat and went to this area with the people we met. And sure enough, they were all done with work, and they got their rum, and they got their guitars out, and they sang and danced.
And here people are bringing their emails home and never cutting the cord.
We don't. And I think it is a acutely American problem. I've got a close friend of mine that has moved to Canada, live in the British Columbia area, and he talks about just how different the pace of life there is compared to, all the big cities in America. And one thing I've noticed is even if you get to the rural areas of America now, there's just I'll just call it a longing. I think we're overstressed, we're overworked, and we don't know how to disconnect anymore and connect to simple things, art, drawing. Right. I think in America we have we're sort of bred to believe that if we're going to do some sort of art, it needs to be good. If you're going to play music, well then you need to make money from it. And not do it just for enjoyment.
Right. I wrote a book last year, folks. I'm not rich. It was an enjoyment. My enjoyment was people reading it and calling me up or texting me or messaging me that they laughed their ass off. That's the enjoyment out of it.
I will say, if anyone asks me for a book recommendation and I ask them what sort of book you're looking for, if they say they're looking for something funny, your book's the first thing I recommend.
Well, would I have wanted to make a few $100,000 to put in the bank? Of course. I'd be lying if I say I didn't want it to be a bestseller. I know that wasn't going to happen when I wrote it, but you have to do things for the love of doing it sometimes. Like you said, you have, that's the purpose of being happy in your life.
Charlie, one thing I loved about your book is you sort of captured the quirkiness of that particular city. And it's
quirkiness is a nice way of putting it.
It is. And, I think you captured a quirkiness in the South that is starting to disappear to a certain extent. Right. And that's one of the things I truly enjoyed about your book.
Well, I appreciate that.
You had some great personalities in there.
Well, now we're going to just do a quick, lightning kind of thing where we're going to go back and forth and name maybe not our top 5 all-time favorite songs, but 5 of our favorites and a quick reason why. I'm
going to pull up Springsteen again.
Okay.
I'm on Fire. What just an amazing song.
It is.
I grew up in the MTV generation.
Sure.
And that music video is burned.
It's iconic.
It is
him working at the shop, driving the car back to the lady.
Yep. And then, pauses and
yeah.
Am I going to go in?
Right.
Am I not going to go in?
Yep.
And he just puts the keys on her door and walks away.
Yep.
And what a boss move, too.
Yeah, it is. Mine, and I would probably say it's my favorite song of all time, is What's Going On by Marvin Gaye.
Oh, Marvin, so great.
Real quick, folks, the central theme of What's Going On and the album of the same name came from Marvin Gaye's own life. His brother, Frankie, returned from Vietnam, and Marvin noticed that his outlook had changed. He put himself in his brother's shoes and wrote a song that stands among the most tuneful works of consciousness raising America in American music. What's Going On looked at the forces shaping American culture at the time, which was the beginning of the 1970s, that moment where that hippie era idealism, I guess you could say, crashed into the realities of poverty, police brutality, war, drug abuse, and racial misunderstanding. The sad part about it, Philip, is that all the things that Marvin spoke about in that song are still going on today.
Exactly. And you know what? One of my favorite things out of the Marvel Universe, out of the movies that have come out, is if you watch Captain America Winter Soldier, and they do the introduction between Steve Rogers and Sam Wilson, Captain America and the Falcon. One of the first things, Captain America has a list of things that he needs to catch up on, and the recommendation that Sam Wilson gives him is to listen to the Trouble Man soundtrack from Marvin Gaye, which, if you listen to that, same thing, and same problems still perpetuate society today. And Trouble Man, what a great album. That was one of the best recommendations. I remember.
Is Mercy, Mercy Me on that one? Or am I mistaken? It might be on another album.
It's on another one. There is nothing commercially known.
Nothing commercially known. Okay.
And I will say this: if you've never listened to it, after I saw the Winter Soldier
I'm going
movie,
to jot this down now.
I went out, bought Trouble Man, and went home and listened to it, and just was in awe of how amazing Marvin Gaye is.
I will be
was
listening to that. And you listeners out there, take Philip's advice. So what's the second one that you got?
I'm doing some Atlanta favorites. I absolutely love this hip hop group. I've loved them since they did their first album. I watched them come up, but I absolutely love. If I had a theme song that followed me around, it is my swagger song, but it is So Fresh and So Clean
Nice.
from Outkast.
Outkast. Okay. What's your connection to that? Like, what do you like about it? Just fun?
There's just something so cool about that song. And just something cool about the two of them.
My second one is a Springsteen song. And I think out of all the songs when you see him in concert, it gets the crowd most fired up. And that's called Badlands. And that's off of his Darkness on the Edge of Town. Basically tells a story about a man down on his luck and angry at the world who wants a better shot in his life. And the key line there is working in the fields till you get your back burned, working beneath the wheel till you get your facts learned. Baby, I got my facts, learn real good right now. Poor man wants to be rich. The rich man wants to be king, and the king ain't satisfied until he rules everything. Isn't that still the truth? But the biggest line in the song for me, and this is something I think encompasses everything we talk about today so far, he says, talk about a dream, you try to make it real, you wake up in the night with a fear so real, you spend your life waiting for a moment that just don't come. Well, don't waste your time waiting. Now, isn't that something we all do? We sit and we just wait for that dream to come true in our lives a lot of the times.
It seems that way, and it seems to be a recurring theme in our music conversation.
Badlands would be my second pick today.
That's a great choice.
So add that to your playlist, folks, and really listen to those words.
My third one, another great song from the 90s, and I've actually got a funny story about it, but it's Foo Fighters' Everlong.
Okay, sure.
Amazing song, but I worked in Borders, R.I.P. Borders. Mm-hmm. I worked in the music department for a while, and I had a lady come in one time, and she looks at me and she goes, "I'm looking for a song. I don't know the name, and I don't know the artist, but it's got an album that's blue, and the song goes."
That's awesome.
And she starts humming it, and I was like, "I know what you need. Come over here." And I told her it was Everlong, but amazing song. You know, Dave came out of Nirvana after they died. Kurt died, and who would have thought just what an amazing songwriter he was? We knew he was a great drummer, but just what a great frontman, great songwriter. But this one, that lyric of "breathe out so I can breathe you in, hold you in," just amazing.
I'll have to add that to my playlist because I don't have it on any of them.
Listen, that Foo Fighters album, which I believe is The Color and Shape, is an amazing album.
That's one band I'm not that familiar with, so I'll have to check that out.
I'll have to talk to my sister next time they come in town.
I know she loves it.
She is actually, and thank you, Amanda, gave me a better appreciation for them. They honestly put on one of the best rock concerts I've ever been to.
I'll have to expand my horizons a bit. My third one is a James Taylor song, but not the classic James Taylor we're used to from the 70s. This is a song he put out in 81 with a legendary songwriter, J.D. Souther, who worked with the Eagles, and it's called Her Town 2. It's a song written by the two of them. The subject of Her Town 2 is the aftermath of a breakup of a long-term relationship. You ever know a couple that breaks up and you're friends with both of them, and then it's like, who do you hang out with? It's like a perspective of a guy who had been through this type of thing, and he's offering advice to the female party in the breakup, in the divorce. Now, that's a tough situation. It's, you know, you're friends with both, but you don't want to take sides. You want to remain friends, but it's difficult to do, and that's what this song's all about.
It can be, and that's so common in life at this point.
Right.
Yeah, that hit home. That hits home. So I certainly appreciate that.
So I'll put that on the playlist. Her Town 2 by James Taylor.
You know, my next one, it's a band that a lot of people don't know. If you know the punk and post-punk new wave bands and genre, you'll be familiar with the Replacements.
Yes.
But one of my favorite songs by them is Aching to Be. It is a great pop love song. And I've always said that Paul Westerberg's got one of the most underrated voices in rock and roll. And this song just showcases it. And it's got...
That's one I'm not familiar with that I'll have to check out.
I highly recommend listening to anything the Replacements do. Post-show, I'll tell you a funny story about the Replacements. It goes back to another band we were talking about earlier. But, yeah, this song's got one of my favorite lines, which was, well, I saw one of your pictures. There was nothing that I could see. And if no one's on your canvas, well, I'm aching to be.
Wow.
This is just a great song and an amazing, underrated, underappreciated band.
That's great. My fourth one. Are we on fourth or are we on the fifth?
I think we're on
We are on
the fourth one.
Fourth one. Okay. Is another song by Billy Joel off the Stranger album that's not very well known called Vienna. It's one of his most popular songs as far as with his diehard fans. People always ask him to play. Billy Joel was visiting his estranged father in Vienna, Austria, when he saw an elderly woman sweeping the streets. He commented that it was awful to have an old woman doing that kind of work. His father said something like, "No, it isn't. She's being useful, and she's doing a service that benefits everyone. She's not just sitting at home wasting away, and she's got her dignity." Joel realized how American culture can push aside the elderly and strip them of their purpose and worth. It was an observation that you have your whole life to live. He had seen a lot of people in their 20s think they have to get it all together by their 30s, and they kill themselves trying to get the golden ring. You have an entire life to live. The lyrics, "Slow down, you crazy child." In other words, you have a whole life. We tend to put older people away, and it's all about young people. Well, wait a minute. Why do I have this whole lifespan then? What's the point of it? So Vienna is a song about slowing down, not burning yourself out of too young. And the key line is Vienna waits for you. Your old age waits for you, and then when you get old, you're going to have a purpose. And I've always loved Vienna from Billy Joel. Great song.
I'll have to check that one out. It's not another. You've surprised me with the Billy Joel. Those are two songs that I'm not familiar with, and I thought I knew him quite well.
Yeah, Vienna is just, and people scream at his concerts, "Play Vienna." The diehards love Vienna. And if you want to jot another one down, Summer Highland Falls off of the Turnstiles album. Lyrically, that'll blow you away also. We won't get into it because it's not one of my picks, but it's a great song too. So what's your fifth, number 5?
There is no true reason behind my appreciation of this song. It is, I use it as a wake-up song in the morning. It's kind of smart-assy. But it's Ryan Adams' "To Be Young is to Be Sad, and it's to be high."
Okay.
It is catchy. There's something relatable about it, but it's just a fun, catchy song.
Is it something that gets you going every day? Does the lyrics get you going?
It does, and I think the catchiness of the guitar parts do as well. But it's off his first solo album, Heartbreaker, and I do know, I will comment just for the controversies that he's dealing with. Ryan is certainly a controversial artist, but his early stuff is just incredible. It's a shame because the guy does have some addiction problems that has caused him to have some other problems as well. But great singer-songwriter. The song is misleadingly upbeat and is quite humorous as well. So I love "To Be Young is to Be Sad, and it's to be high."
That's awesome. My final one is "Night Moves" by Bob Seger. I mean, this song is the heart of America to me. It's about everyone's coming of age portrayed through music. If you're going to paint a picture in your head of what coming from like teenage years to adulthood is all about. It's encompassed in the song Night Moves. For those of you who know the song, you understand. For those maybe the younger listeners or people not familiar with Bob Seger, do yourself a favor, especially on a late summer night. Put on Night Moves. You don't even need the late summer night. You put on that song and you feel like you're out in an open field on a late summer night. It's about the coming of age coming through music. And it's about when you're young and you're carefree, like those high school into college summers, and you don't have a care in the world. But then at the end of the song, he talks about autumn closing in. And that could be a metaphor, not just for the seasons of changing, but maybe the autumn of his life, the autumn of your life closing in. Those good times and that carefree time, you turning into adulthood and autumn's closing in on you. And I think that's my favorite line.
You picked a perfect song, because that song to me is summer. I know lots of people will listen to, there's a certain like Kid Rock song I hear
all summer long
playing on the lake and stuff, but Night Moves to me just screams summer.
Yes.
When I hear that, it can be the winter. I think of summer.
Yes.
And it also, I like that you brought up that it's a come of age song, because it makes me think back to about my junior year of high school. There's just something.
You remember those days? We're just hanging out on those summer nights, and
it is. There's something. It may be one of the, like in my life, it's one of the most perfect songs to bring nostalgia back to you quickly.
And I totally agree with you. If I listened to Night Moves on a December night before Christmas, I would still feel like I felt on a summer night as a teenager.
And
Moondance does the same thing for me by Van Morrison.
Another
it
great
brings
song.
me to an autumn night where you're just dancing under the stars with the leaves falling. It could be any time of year. When I hear Moondance, I'm picturing a late October, early November, crisp fall night, just under the stars. And just certain songs can just transport you to those places.
You know what's funny about Night Moves is, in the 90s, they started making music videos for songs in the 70s.
Yeah, I remember that video.
And it had Matt LeBlanc in it. Mm-hmm. And they were it was summer.
Right.
And they were at a drive-in, and it just,
in the 60 Chevy.
Yeah, in the 67 Chevy. And it just sticks with you.
And it's funny, anytime, because he said, I woke last night to the sound of thunder, how far off I sat and wondered. Every time I wake up from a thunderstorm, I always think of that line. That Bob Seger line. It really...
Does it take you back to 1962?
That's a little before my time, maybe 82. So those are do you have any bonus ones? Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I would... when you mentioned to me Night Moves, I never really appreciated the song until a couple of years ago, and it was watching the Netflix series Ozark. But it's a Bob Seger song, and still the same.
Great song.
It's just another amazing song. I didn't like it at all as a kid or as a man in my 20s, but after watching the Ozark and then listening to it and watching and seeing what was going on, I absolutely love Still the Same now.
Yeah, and folks, if you have an Amazon Alexa, just say, Alexa, shuffle Bob Seger songs. You'll be glad you did. Or just on Spotify, just shuffle some Bob Seger songs, especially Night Moves. Like a Rock does the same kind of thing for me, but Night Moves is, to me, his signature song.
Night Moves is the signature song. And then, for me, then Still the Same right after it.
So, yeah, definitely check it out. Philip, this has been fun.
Yeah.
I really had a good time.
I thoroughly enjoyed this.
And I know we were a little deep on this one, but folks, rewind the podcast, jot down these songs. It'll be worth your while, and maybe you'll expand on some of these albums that we spoke about, like The Stranger, great album, front to back. That's what it's all about. Rediscovering, I call it new old music. Sometimes you forget about certain albums from artists that are older. Maybe you're not crazy about the music that's out today, so a lot of it. But there's new old music, stuff you probably maybe overlooked when you were younger. That's what the show was all about today. Or maybe it takes on different meaning now. So definitely go back and check some of these songs out. Philip, thanks again. It was a great time.
Charlie, thanks for having me on.
So, folks, if you're cruising around, listening to Night Moves or any of the songs we talked about today, you still have to beware. And why is that? Because it's a shit show out there. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been A Bunch of Malarkey. Have a great week, everybody, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks.
Bye.